You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters. Well, we're going to talk about the NFL. Something that we've talked about quite a bit is the idea that the NFL could be rigged, could be scripted. And we've talked about the fact that many fans out there believe that there could be some shadiness going on, particularly with officials. Myles Garrett destroyed the officials the other day. He got him a fat $25,000 fine today out of it. Unbelievable. And, of course, everybody went nuts the other day. The Kansas City Chiefs were crying about the call made against Kadarius Toney. And, look, the play that they ran was epic. If it would have been a legal play and there wouldn't have been an offsides on Kadarius Toney being lined up at the line, then it would have went down in Chiefs history if they would have won that game. But he was lined up offsides and it got called. It is what it is. But the refs the refs as a courtesy will tell receivers to get back, but they don't have to. That's not a rule. So anyway, Dean Blandino, who we know is on all these NFL shows, I believe it's Fox Sports that uses them most predominantly, but he was on with awful announcing. Now keep in mind, the Joe Burrow thing went down with the wrist. Dave Portnoy and other people may actually be suing the NFL right now. And he admitted something that should have Roger Goodell and the league very concerned. He just came out and admitted NFL officials have been approached to manipulate calls, games around sports betting. Now, we know the NFL has fully jumped in with both feet. You had Roger Goodell talking about how much he adored Las Vegas when he wouldn't say a single solitary positive thing about Vegas 10 years ago. Well, you're in bed with the gambling now. So they're having to watch their officials, and yes, their officials have been approached to manipulate games. Dean Blandino, this is awful announcing, the former vice president of officiating for the NFL. He really should be back. I thought he came back to the league working in some capacity. Recently commented on whether legalized sports gambling has affected the job of officials. On the latest episode of Awful Announcing's podcast, he mentioned that although he couldn't say that it has impacted their job, he acknowledged that it has increased scrutiny. Blandino explained that the NFL has strict protocols in place for officials even before they are hired. An NFL security representative goes door to door in their neighborhood to talk to their neighbors. This practice is still in place today. Quote, they look at all of your business associations. They look for conflicts of interest. All of that. Bank accounts, everything. Blandino told host Brendan Contes, quote, and there's checks during the season. And so they'll look at if a game official has $10 in their bank on Friday, and then they work a game, and now there's $100,000 in there. That's a red flag, right? So you're checking those things. So they're looking. If a ref calls a game, and then all of a sudden they got a chunk of cash show up, of course, how do you keep track of extra accounts, overseas accounts? Not to bring any of that up, but, just saying. You're monitoring the betting lines, and you're looking at how calls impact those lines, and are there individual officials that are involved in more of those calls? It's a massive, massive undertaking because what the league doesn't want, what we never wanted was a situation like what happened with the NBA, right? Question mark. We've talked about this. The Tim Donaghy situation involving the big scandal This is to avoid a situation similar to the NBA scandal involving Tim Donaghy, a former NBA official. An FBI investigation uncovered allegations that he bet on games he officiated during his last 2 seasons and made calls that affected the point spread in the game. The NFL wants to prevent such incidents from happening. Quote, "It created more scrutiny," said Blandino. "I think it's created more pressure, and that's not going to change. It's only going to increase as we move forward." Conte's asked Blandino, and this is where it gets really interesting, if he's ever heard of an NFL official being approached by somebody about trying to impact a score, a stat line, or anything like that in a game. Quote, "We've had situations where people were approached," Blandino revealed. "We've always told our officials because they're in hotels, they're traveling around during the season, we didn't want them wearing NFL branded gear. We didn't want them to be inconspicuous because someone sees them and goes, 'Oh, the NFL officials,' and then you never know. You don't know who you're going to come across. And they know that they're supposed to go to NFL security if something like that happens, and that has happened in the past." Quote, "They're not allowed to go if they go to their casino, maybe in their other jobs." See, they're not even full-time employed. It's something, a billion-dollar industry like the NFL and the referees, somebody that is so critical to the outcomes of games. I mean, that's not even their full-time job. It's a part-time gig. There's been calls to have them made full-time for years. I don't get it. There's a speaking engagement. It's at a casino. They can't go in the sports book. They have to let the NFL know that they're going to be in Las Vegas for this event, or they're going to be staying at wherever. There's a lot of controls in place. While the NFL's extensive protocols are robust, Blandino's frank admission of past approaches and the ever-evolving nature of gambling makes it clear the league's battle against officiating corruption remains constant, demanding continued vigilance and adaptation. Wow. So, of course, the biggest takeaway on that is, yes, officials have been approached about manipulating, and look, just going to say it. We've all seen the hashtag NFL rigged. We've seen it. Dave Portnoy come right out and tweeted it like 2 weeks ago. The NFL's rigged. Every time there's a pass interference call, it starts trending. You guarantee it, especially if it's in the last 3 minutes of a game usually. It will start trending, and then sometimes they ignore ones that are blatant. I mean, that goes the other way too, and then you're like, what's going on here? There was one today during the Bengals and the Vikings game. And I was like, oh, hell no. That was pass interference. He basically was all over him, had a hold of his jersey. Wasn't called. I think it was a Vikings player tugging on a Bengals jersey. Towards the end of the game, I don't think the game would have ever made it into overtime if that had been called pass interference. I've said, the NFL is the biggest dog on the block in ratings. But eventually something's going to take them down. Something took down the NBA. Something took down Major League Baseball. Now they're not nearly as popular as they once were. Baseball used to far and away be the biggest sport. And it wasn't close for a long, long time. During my lifetime. Half of my lifetime. So that's just something to think about, but Dean Blandino just coming right out and acknowledging somebody has, they have been approached. That's a big deal. It really is. And I don't think anything he said, they talk about things like going to Vegas or going to some place where there's a casino. With all this online betting, I mean, how does that, I don't even know how that works, how they can keep track of it. Never mind other ways to have bank accounts and what's all the other thing, cash apps and PayPals and yada, yada, yada. My sister's brother-in-law just got $40,000 randomly. Are you tracking them? Because my gut feeling is no, you're not. I mean, you get my point. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.